Welcome to the Upshot, multi-world disc golf podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I am the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield, and we've got the Waco Annual Charity Open coming up next weekend. It is the second stop on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and we'll, of course, be breaking that all down for you on Thursday's show. Today, we're going to open up a little bit of mail. We're also going to talk with Gannon Buhr, who just came in second place at the Las Vegas Challenge. And really looking forward to talking with, one of the most exciting young players to come up since really Eagle McMahon, I feel like. Is like the last time I remember thinking, wow, we have a teenager who looks like they're going to be a special player. So we'll get a chance to talk with him. And we are also going to talk right now about the Memorial, which is, it's kind of weird, Josh, because it's not on tour anymore. But like, there is no tournament that's not on tour that gets the kind of draw that the Memorial does.
I mean, it comes from a long time of being on tour and established as being, one of those opening tournaments that we start the season with. It's so interesting, though, because I think in the same way that we look at LVC winners and we say, LVC is a very particular course. It is a very particular set of skills. It's a very particular tournament in the structure. And so you take the winner with a little bit of grain of salt, or even the top 10 with a little bit of a grain of salt as to what you should expect from the Pro Tour season. I feel a lot the same way about the Memorial, in that the lessons we need to derive from it have to be taken with a little bit of caution, because the Heiser Fest can only show you so much.
The Heiser Olympics.
That's right. That's what they call it.
Yeah. I mean, look, this tournament means absolutely nothing to me in terms of like knowing who's good status. Like, shout out to Anthony Barella for playing well as usual. But look, this is the Mick Memorial. This is the Mick Memorial, and it's been called that for a long time because Mr. Paul McBeth absolutely dominates out here. He opens up round one with a 16 under. I mean, the guy almost did the 18 under again. He really did. 1108 rated, 16 under. And here's a fact for you. It is the 14th 1100 plus rated round at the Memorial. 28% of all 1100 rated rounds in disc golf history have come at the Memorial. So, Josh, do you think it's legit when you have more than a quarter of all of the 1100 plus rated rounds coming from one tournament? Or maybe, just maybe, is there something about the wide open Heiser spaces that makes those numbers a little suspect?
I can't say that I terribly trust these numbers. It's odd. I mean, yeah, this just goes to show that PDGA ratings are not always the best metric for measuring a round, because they can't always accurately reflect the difficulty of a course for the pros. It's a rating that's designed to accommodate and incorporate an entire field, including, the guys who finished at plus 29 with McBeth finishing at negative 40, right? That's what it's designed to do. And so when you have someone like Paul McBeth or Anthony Barella who can just throw Heisers a mile and park everything, and life becomes really easy.
Yeah. I mean, not to take away from their skill, obviously 16 under is an amazing score regardless of the rating or the course. But I do think that there's something about the way the Memorial lays out with a lot of OB, a lot of long water carries that creates more separation between the best, distance accuracy throwers like McBeth and the rest, where like if you're a little off, even as a professional player with great distance ability, you can end up going OB a lot, which, that really inflates your score. And then you have, it creates this level of separation that seems to yield a lot of 1100 plus rated rounds. So either way, great round. And McBeth does take it down 40 under, beats Anthony Barella by 3 strokes. McBeth kind of made it interesting with a lackluster third round, but it was never really in doubt. Aaron Gossage finishes in third place. Drew Gibson, who won the LVC, finishes in fourth. Over on FPO, Kristen Tatar gets her first win of the season. She beats Jen Allen by 3 strokes, 8 under to Jen Allen's 5 under. Owen Scoggins finishes in third at 4 under, and Henna Blomroos in fourth place at 2 under. Evelina Salonen was the other big European name in the field. You started out really strong, but had some real struggles with the putter. Ended up finishing in a tie for 5th place at 1 over with Emily Beach. So Kristen Tatar continuing to show, I think, that she is the standard bearer coming over from Europe and the person that you have to look at as having the most well-rounded game right now, and is the biggest threat to win elite events.
I completely agree. I think the FPO actually shows us a couple of things, the first of which being the Europeans' kind of order. And it also shows, I think, a good sign from Henna Blomroos that she can come to the course that really she should be playing well at and play pretty well. So that's nice. I think it's going to be a good confidence boost, and I hope she carries it into Waco and can do better at Waco. To see also, though, Jen Allen, who is known for playing well at the Memorial as well because of just her absolute distance, and she's from the area. I saw a post on her social media that she finished her round and then put on her mask and went and saw patients. So
wow.
Still, from the area, local, plays this tournament well every year. For Kristen Tatar to beat Jen Allen, I think shows that Kristen Tatar, as you said, has a really well-rounded game. It also is really encouraging, though, from Owen Scoggins, who isn't a distance thrower by any means, but is an exceptional putter and shows that her game is so solid and specialized at what it's at that it makes up for deficiencies even on courses that would otherwise not favor her. So I think we learned quite a bit from the FPO side, a lot more so than the MPO. But maybe it's just because of we European women who we don't get to see as often, so we're desperate for any information.
Oh, and it's also just great to, the Memorial is still like an enjoyable little relic. I think I like it more now that it's not on tour, to be honest. It's like it kind of lowers the stakes a little bit, and it feels a little bit more like, all right, we're just like doing a little desert thing. I mean, it was a little tedious to watch live coverage of that tournament the last time that we saw this on tour. And just like people are like walking their dogs in the middle of the course, and it's just not a primetime venue and tournament anymore. And that's okay. Shout out to Terry Miller for going over there and filming 3 cards deep of coverage and turning it around. And I think, people are super appreciative of him doing that now 2 years in a row. And, it's great to be at the end of the day. People are going to want to watch Paul Macbeth play his first tournament of the year. It doesn't matter where he plays, whether it's a Wintertime Open or where it's Memorial, whatever. This is, going to be a newsy event. Macbeth certainly passed the test this weekend. Yep. So let's get on to some mail. We've got a bunch to get to, and we thank you for always sending in your thoughts and questions to upshot@ultiworld.com. Please reach out. And Josh, I'll let you grab the first letter today.
All right. I'm going to take one from Isaac. Isaac says that the Disc Golf Pro Tour does not get the criticism the PDGA got because the more vocal, high-level pros get what they want from the Disc Golf Pro Tour. We've seen a number of things people complain about with the Disc Golf Pro Tour this year, that if the PDGA did last year, they would have been called a terrible organization, etc., etc. What are your thoughts, Charlie?
It's an interesting take. I think there's some validity to the take. I do think that there's a little bit more of a trust between top pros and the Pro Tour that had eroded and maybe still is eroded with the PDGA. I think the difference really is that when the Pro Tour makes a misstep, which they do, they typically work hard to try to solve that misstep. They're focused on the PR side of it, and they, try to make it right. They try to fix mistakes. And isn't that what you want to see? The PDGA for a long time was intransigent and digging in their heels and, not trying to work with the pros to find solutions. And it got so bad that, players are starting to talk about like not going to NTs. And they had to eventually have, Joe Chargaloff, the executive director, sit people down and be like, we got to solve this. And they like reorganize their entire organization. And obviously they've done the merger with the DGPT, and they've, put people in positions of leadership that are a little bit more DGPT friendly and focused. And I think you've seen those changes, which we've talked about. And, I personally think they've made a lot of smart moves over the last 6 months after, kind of dropping the ball in some high profile ways, particularly at last year's majors. So does the DGPT get a free pass sometimes? Perhaps. I mean, I'm trying to think of like what specifically Isaac's talking about here. There was like the drop zone lack of clarity, perhaps, that, kind of got corrected, but Tristan Tanner still took a 2-stroke penalty, like little things like that. Maybe that's the issue. I don't really know, whether the caddy book was clear on the point. So at some point the players need to, look at the caddy book. You could argue that. I mean, certainly the All-Star event had some sloppiness, which we talked about a bunch here on the show. I don't know that there's like big obvious stuff that has been like a total disaster in the ways that we saw, like at last year's Worlds, where they didn't string the OB and then there were like all kinds of OB confusions. That stuff doesn't seem to happen that often. So that, I don't know, that's my take. I think that players are generally less likely to get on social media and put the Pro Tour on blast. And I think Isaac's right. It's because the Pro Tour really works with the pros and is trying to make their tour experience better. And so pros are going to have a lot more leash for issues.
Yep. You hit them both on the head. So I completely agree.
All right. Well, then I'll just go ahead and grab the next letter. This one comes from Braden. Said he listened to the LVC wrap-up show. He said, as one of the competitors on the amateur side, and my first time at LVC in person, I found it to be one of the absolute highlights of my short career. It was incredibly well run, the property is gorgeous, and the people were fantastic. I do understand that the needs of the AMs and the needs of the elite pros who have disc golf as their livelihoods are different. Nonetheless, I also believe that part of the magic for us AMs was being there and mixing with the pros, playing the same courses with appropriate scores, and generally getting the same treatment as the pros. Splitting it into pro and AM weeks may be necessary because of the growth of the sport, but it will be sad to see that part lost. I talked to many players on my side who said they would not return if it was AM only, if only because taking multiple weeks off of day jobs for an AM tournament and then to hang around and watch the pros is just not feasible. Still, if this was the last year of the mixed tournament, I am blessed to have been a part of it. It was an unforgettable experience for me. Your thoughts, Josh?
I have some, I don't know if sympathy is the right word, but some understanding for this point from Braden. I imagine that it was empathy. Yeah, there we go. Yes. I have some empathy for this comment because I think that it's true. I think, being treated like as an AM, you are part of the Pro Elite Series event probably is a really special experience. I don't think, though, that it's an experience that the Pro Tour should prioritize when you have the needs of pros who, as Braden points out, their livelihoods depend on these tournaments and depend on their ability to come and practice them, for example, and get enough practice days in. I don't think that necessarily would take priority. It should still be preserved. That's why, as we talked about, I think pairing it with like Disc Golf Con when the pros are still there, and the idea of like treating them well as AMs, making sure it feels like the pro experience and having them play the same courses so they can compare their scores a week later. I think all those things can still happen. And I recognize that, some of those people who do travel probably can't stay the full week, but those players who are AMs who, are probably within 2 hours, they probably could take time off to go play the AM weekend, go back to work for the week, and then come back and catch the last 2 rounds of the pro tournament. And then you get those spectators back, which I would say, within 2 hours probably makes up half of an amateur field typically, maybe more, maybe less depending on the event. I don't have any statistics on that, but I think that there are ways you can preserve the magic, for lack of a better word, of this AM weekend that really does feel prioritized and important, but not necessarily at the cost of backups, of course issues, etc. for the pro side.
And I think the core point of making it possible to have pros and AMs together playing at a similar event is a good one. However, it should be at a pro-am tournament where there's not the same level of pressure on the pros to play at the highest level at the tournaments that we're calling Elite Series. So if LVC wants to run a pro-am weekend and they want to, the Disc Golf Pro Tour should probably have some kind of pro-am tournament where you even have pros playing on the same card with AMs at times. And it should be an event that is designed around amateurs being able to interact with the pros, play the same course, and even share a card, meet the pros. And, the AMs who would want to do something like that would probably have to pay a nice, $250 fee or something like that in order to be able to participate. But I am all for that kind of thing. But it needs to be in the context of a lower pressure environment. Right now, the tournament is having to make concessions, and they're choosing to prioritize the amateurs basically by saying we're going to do 3 courses because we need to have enough spots in the tournament to be able to facilitate having all these people here. And that's coming at the expense of the highest quality possible pro event. And the lack of an FPO layout, it doesn't make sense in my opinion at this point in disc golf. And those things I think are being chosen because they're trying to continue to have AMs there. And it's just not going to continue to work out that way. And so I understand that it was a great experience for the AMs who were there. And I get the point about not being able to stick around for a week. I just think that it's not a reasonable expectation at this point to say that I get to play in a tournament at the same time the pros are playing on the same courses at a tournament. That doesn't happen in other sports. You have to pay for that experience. And I just think this is it's one of the costs of progress. It's just yes, it's great for the couple hundred amateurs who get to be at this tournament and experience that, but it's worse for everyone else. It's worse for the pros. It's worse for the thousands of people who are watching the tournaments online. It's worse for, just the logistics. So I think I want to make sure that I say that it's a good thing for pros and AMs to be able to be at an event together. However, it needs to not be an Elite Series event.
I think this is also comes from a place of unlimited accessibility to pros, which our sport has enjoyed for a long time and frankly has to change to an extent. There needs to be roped off areas the pros can just go, and if they don't want to sign discs, they don't have to, because they're competing for thousands and tens of thousands of dollars sometimes. It's something that every other sport has. I would like to kind of keep a blend because I think that is something that makes disc golf special, is that accessibility. But there does have to be some level of professionalism for those pros, and this is part of that professionalism.
Before you grab the next question, Josh, we actually have a voicemail to play. Did you know, if you're listening, that we have a hotline that you can call in order to get your questions in? Yes, we certainly do. 302-448-8584. 302-448-8584. Call the hotline, leave your message, and you might get on the show. So here is a question. It comes from Heath. Let's listen.
Hey, Charlie and Josh. This is Heath Shanahan, a longtime listener, first-time caller. Really another transplant from the Ultimate Frisbee world over disc golf. One thing that I'd be interested in, I wish we would have talked to, when you talked to Jonathan Gomez, you would have asked, and maybe you have an answer to this, but how do they handle the editing process? Those rounds are over late in the day sometimes, and then they're pumped out pretty quickly. Do they have somebody that's running memory cards every day or, throughout the day back to the Jomez Pro headquarters, wherever that might be on the course, and that they're editing throughout the day so that it makes it a little bit easier in the evening to just do the audio commentary, or are they having to do all this build all at one time? I'd be really interested to know that process from start to finish. Appreciate what you guys do. It's great listening to you. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Heath. I can't say that I know 100% of the workflow, but I have a general idea that I think will give you a sense of the answer to the question you're asking. Generally, Jomez and the other video producers, yes. So they dump their cards at the turn. So after the front 9, they pop those SD cards out, and those get brought back to wherever their editing team is so they can start working on the front 9. Because, of course, they put it out as 2 separate videos, front and back. There's a lot of reasons for that. It's better to get more people to watch more ads. It's more manageable lengths of videos. And it also makes it a lot quicker to export, edit and export and get the file up so you can have that front 9 come out. Even as you're working on the back 9, which, is going to be, you're not going to be able to start editing it for at least another couple hours as the round finishes. So that's the first thing. And then they have around the clock editors. So they have people who stay up all night on their editing team. And this is typical of most of the post-production folks. They're going to have people whose job it is to work an overnight shift, basically getting it ready to go. And generally, depends on when the rounds are happening, but generally commentary is done the next morning for Jomez. So, let's say it's Nate and Germ, they'll get up in the morning, come over, record the audio before they play their round, typically in the late morning, early afternoon. So that's the general workflow. Once they get the audio laid down, if there's any final tweaks to make, they make them, and then they export and get it up on YouTube. So that's the basic process. Of course, a lot depends on when rounds are happening. So typically MPO lead cards in the afternoon, but you often see like GK Pro, they'll get rounds turned around same day sometimes because they're FPO rounds in the morning. They're able to get those flipped around. They also edit extremely fast. But most of them, yes, are dumping their cards at the midway point. So there you go.
Interesting. I didn't know any of this either. So this was a learning experience for me as well. Next letter. This one comes from Sean and feels very timely. He references the Memorial. Sean says that Evelina Salinen's putting, she had a brutal showing at the Memorial, takes her out of the top 5 highest rated FPO players in 2022.
Well, that's a spicy take right there. I am going to say no. We've seen Evelina have up and down roller coaster putting. She has some struggles. She'll also get ultra hot. Look, Evelina Salinen is an incredibly talented player. Don't let a little bit of a putting issues make you start to sell all your stock. That would be a mistake. She's going to figure it out. It is a problem for her, clearly. Like there's the mental side of the game challenges on the putting green, but I don't think that, we want to take 2 events from 2022 after all of the strong play that she's shown over her entire career and last year to, start to dump your stock. I think that she's still easily a top 5 player.
Yep. I would agree with that. And I think that a lot of the putting woes that you see, just think about how many strokes she left at LVC from inside 15 feet. I would not be surprised if she turns that around by, within a couple of events. That's something that I think every person on tour is capable of doing. Give her a little bit of time to adjust. In a couple, maybe by, if Champions Cup goes poorly and we're poor through Champions Cup, then maybe we can start sounding alarms, but I'm not quite ready to do that yet.
All right. Mark says, Gannon Buhr did not crack under pressure. His circle 2 percentage on the tournament, you said, was 45%, which is excellent. So at some point in the tournament, he had to miss a few. He played excellent golf and lost after a 4-hole playoff, which in itself has almost never been done. He didn't crack. Josh?
I would have argued this point pretty vehemently if not for a recorded interview with Gannon Buhr that you're going to hear later today or later in this show. Here's what I'll say. It's not just that he missed a couple of circle 2 putts. It's that he missed a couple circle 2 putts in areas that he's made them with very similar putts, and they just all coincidentally were on the back 9. And then if you look at his putts from the first and third holes of the playoff, his putts both hit left side. And really, if they had spit out, I wouldn't have been shocked. Like I would have said that was Am's side. He missed. Those both lend themselves to believing that he started to get some nerves. Just from my personal experience and anecdotal experience and watching, when people start missing left, it's usually because they're tightening up a little bit. They're nervous. They're not as confident. And so that's kind of what I think informs my belief that the pressure started to get to him. I will say, though, you're going to hear Gannon's interview. It sure doesn't sound like pressure was the problem. So I'll leave it at that. I can see both sides to this one now.
I think there were signs that he was not 100% comfortable with just like some speed control things, some of the putting things. I don't think he cracked in the sense that like he choked it away. He didn't really choke it away. Drew just played really, 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 really well. And we'll hear Gannon talk about that too. So I don't want to say that he cracked, but I do think the pressure was evident. And who wouldn't feel some adrenaline and stress in that situation? All right, here's one from Jeff. A thought that crossed his mind, super easy thing to implement, would add a slight level of difficulty to courses in a positive, but not, entirely game-changing way. I know a lot of courses have a certain number of elevated baskets, but I think that having something like 90% of baskets on a given course at different elevations would be a positive change. Say hole 1's basket is at 6 feet, hole 2's is at 3 feet, hole 3's at 4.5 feet, and you adjust, so on and so forth. I'm not suggesting that there needs to be a drastic difference in each basket height, but in a similar fashion that every traditional golf green has its own unique qualities and undulations. This would allow each disc golf green to have a similar feel. It would force players to rely more on in-the-moment focus and less on strict mechanics and muscle memory.
I will say, I think that this is compelling, but I see 2 problems with it. The first of which is that not all of our courses, in fact, most of our courses are not played on dedicated Disc Golf Pro Tour courses, which means, purchasing a set of Disc Golf Pro Tour baskets that you can purchase with, the modulating height, or, creating that modification for just a regular public course would probably be a pain in the neck. But you know what? We're at the elite level of disc golf. Let's assume that it is possible. We could do it. The one thing that I would say is I don't think that it's a fair comparison about how traditional golf greens have their own uniqueness. So do disc golf greens right now. This is like saying we should make the disc golf hole, or the golf hole, twice as large on some hard greens and half as large on ones that maybe be considered easier. Something that golf absolutely doesn't do. And I think part of the reason why, to say that, this isn't radically game changing is incorrect in my opinion. Every change that you make favors some sort of skill. If you stretch courses out, you give more advantage to distance throwers. If you make putting greens harder and then change the height of baskets, you reward those players who putt the best. It's a choice that you have to make. And so I don't know if 90% of them need to have different heights. I like the idea of maybe having a few more that aren't just elevated to the standard highest position, but maybe 5 or 6 of them. In that way, you do create a reward for some of the players who do putt excellent, but it's not so drastic that, every single basket's at a different height, because I think then it is a conscious decision to say you putt really well. That's the side of the game that this course is going to choose to reward.
I think that the concept of, we obviously we already accept changes in elevation of baskets. So it's not like we have just this very strict, every basket's at the same height all the time. We've already accepted that like we're going to raise the basket up sometimes to make putting harder. So it's not like some sort of super outlandish claim. I just feel like it's not like I don't know that I see the benefit that much of like having a 2-foot high basket versus a 3.5-foot high basket. Like, yes, there's some extra challenge there maybe, but it's just going to be, I think it's going to look weird. And I don't know that it really doesn't accomplish the task. If you want to make it more difficult and more interesting, yeah, sure, elevate more baskets. Like there's drama. Like I'm trying to remember, there's a hole at the fort that had an elevated basket that was near water that was OB. And there was like all kinds of drama because people kept, airballing the putt and then it would go into the OB and there was all kinds of strokes happening. And, you can argue that that's actually like not ideal, that it's kind of like a cheap way to steal strokes from players, but at least it created like dramatic moments. I don't know that a 2-foot high basket is going to do that. I just think that sort of makes it easier for most players to kind of just putt down into the basket. If we want to elevate more, great. But I actually think that green design shouldn't be focused on changing the elevation of the basket as much as it should be adding obstruction, making it more difficult to get onto the easy putting part of the green, creating spaces where like you're punished if you're on the left side, but you're in a great position if you're on the right side. Those are things that really haven't come to disc golf much yet, and so I'd like to see those happen.
Last letter, I believe, is from Brian. Brian talks about the cut line from our last discussion. He says that he feels like, in addition to a cut, that there needs to be a standard set for the number of rounds a tournament has. Worlds gets 5 rounds on 2 distinct courses. USDGC, European Open, and Champions Cup are 4 rounds. He says with European Open and Champions Cup on 2 courses. I believe, isn't Champions Cup on 1 course this year? It's just, okay. And so is European Open.
WR Jackson.
So both,
it'll be on 1 course next year as well.
Okay, so I think these have been established as kind of 1 course tournaments, but anyway, and then Elite Series events are 3 rounds on 1 course. And he says the format does a couple of things. It reserves longer style tournaments for the more important events and majors. It saves players from having to practice multiple courses for every single tournament. It simplifies the viewing experience for the audience, and it concentrates the TD's efforts on 1 course. What do you, Charlie, what do you think?
Well, I'm trying to decide, to be honest, whether I think tournament should be 3 rounds or 4 rounds. You talk about the cut line, and I'm not going to remember who said this to me, but either was an email or the Discord. Somebody said that having a cut line after 2 rounds is not enough in disc golf because there's not enough ways to show the skill separation required to then put a cut in. In golf, there's more shots, there's more difficulty over the course of 2 rounds when they have their cut compared to disc golf, where putting is, quite easy. It's like free throws, and there's not that many shots in a round that are going to be like true separators. And so that like a cut after 2 rounds is too soon, that you need to have at least 3 rounds, and then you can have your cut, and then you have your final round. I actually think that's a pretty compelling point, that it does feel a little premature maybe to cut after 2 rounds. So I'm starting to think to myself, well, maybe all the tournament should be 4 rounds, because then we can have 3 rounds, have a cut, have a final round. But I'm not sure, because I think there's also an argument to be made that like 4 rounds feels like overkill right now for standard regular Elite Series events. Either way, I do think that the general concept here is sort of already established, isn't it not? Like, we already have 5 rounds at Worlds on 2 distinct courses. That's happening. We already have 4-round tournaments for the other majors. And then most Elite Series events are 3 rounds, although some are 4 rounds. But the ones that are 4 rounds generally have multiple courses, making 4 rounds make more sense. Does it really take away from the majors to have GMC be 4 rounds? I really don't think so. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me feel like the majors are devalued in some way. So while I sort of like the general concept of more standardization, I'm actually inclined to say that we should move more tournaments up to the 4-round level as opposed to moving more down to the 3-round level. Just because I think that it makes the cut line make more sense, and it sort of, it's also going to show off skill more, because better players are going to win with more rounds.
And look at the tournaments that we would talk about cutting and telling you need to cut out one of your courses and get down to 3 rounds. It's GMC, it's Ledgestone, and it's DDO. 3 tournaments that have excellent history, who have incredibly well-run tournaments, and courses that people want to see. If you come for
Vegas is also 4 rounds.
Vegas has 3 courses though, Charlie. It doesn't count. Vegas can come back and be a part of this discussion when they move to 2 courses.
Okay, all right. Next year we'll talk about it.
But the standard for 4-round tournaments are 2 courses, and they're typically 2 courses that highlight different aspects of the game and are very largely well-liked courses for viewing and for competing. I don't know how you go to GMC and say, sorry, you just need to play at one of these. You need to cut out the other. I think you're missing out on a real opportunity to have diversity in the game at a single tournament that rewards different skill sets. And is also, I think as a viewer, I would prefer to watch 4 rounds over 2 courses rather than 3 rounds at a single course. If those courses are good courses, which, Ledgestone and DDO and GMC all, I think, fit that bill.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our mailbag this week. Remember, you can get in touch with us anytime, upshot@ultiworld.com, or you can become a subscriber and you can talk to us all the time in the Discord. So you can check that out, discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. Keep in mind, we're going to be doing our live React show for subscribers live in the Discord on Sunday night after the Waco Annual Charity Open. So looking forward to doing that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Gannon Buhr joins us. Stay with us. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. And you know what? If you want to get the custom pack that you envision in your mind's eye, the pack of your dreams, you can do it at any time. Go to pounddiscgolf.com and you can get your custom Octothorpe, your custom Octahall, your custom Carlton, your custom Toolbox, and their custom pack builders are now open all the time. No more waiting for drops or hoping that you get lucky. You can just go build your pack. You can tinker with it for a while before you hit the order button, but you can check it all out on their website and you can just design it exactly how you want, from the zippers to the main flap to the bottom of the pack, exactly what you envision. pounddiscgolf.com. Joining us now on the Upshot is 2-time junior world champ and the 2nd place finisher at last weekend's Las Vegas Challenge, Gannon Buhr. Gannon, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So what a whirlwind it must have been for you over the last week after a tremendous performance leading for much of the tournament at the Las Vegas Challenge. I know this isn't even your first top 5 finish on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. You did that last year, but this felt a little different, at least from the outside perspective. Was it different for you being in the mix late in the final round?
Yeah, it was kind of something I've never experienced before. I've been on some chase cards, and like at the Preserve last year, I was able to get 4th at the Preserve, but I was on a chase card. And I was never really in the contention for the win. And this was kind of the first time that I was in control the whole way. And like I said, was in contention the whole round.
So describe what you were feeling going into maybe the back 9, or was there any point when your emotions changed, the pressure really felt amplified? How were you feeling during that last stretch of that round?
To be honest, once I was up 3 after hole 14, and then because I knew if Drew just parred 2 of the holes, then I win, and I didn't even have to birdie anything. And then Drew ended up birdieing 15, and then missing 16 actually because he missed a putt. And at that point, I was up 2 with 2 to go, and I'm like 1 par, and I win from him. And I still felt really good. There was not really any nerves, I would say. It was kind of just like playing the game and, trying to stay safe and not go out of bounds. So I played 17 pretty safe. I kind of shanked it just because I was scared of the OB left. And then obviously 18, it just kind of got a weird roll or trickle out of bounds, which I still don't really know how that happened. It was kind of weird. It like just kind of like slid down the hill. It wasn't even like rolling. So it was like, but yeah, the back nine was definitely more laid back than people might think. I kind of just was playing the round, how the round was. I wasn't really thinking about the situation that much.
Were you shocked that Drew was able to catch you?
I know I had him by 3 going into the round, and then he tied that up after 5 holes. So at that point, I was a little bit nervous, but then I gained a 3-stroke lead back within the next like 6 holes because I think I was 7 down through the next 6 holes, and with that eagle on hole 7, and at that point, I'd say I'm a little surprised he was able to catch me. But it's nothing Drew obviously can't do. I knew he was going to park it on 17. Already. So, but yeah.
I want to ask you about that shot on 18 that ended up going OB. Do you feel like you executed that shot exactly how you wanted to and you just got a bad break? Or do you think you should have done something slightly different about the shot or the disc selection or something like that?
Yeah, I kind of have a mixed answer for that because, like, in my opinion, in the moment, I'd never practiced that shot because I always practiced the layup off the tee pad. But in the moment, the second it left my hand, I said, okay, game over, easy win. I thought I'd played it 30 feet short, gonna slide up and everything. And then I saw it like hit the top of the hill and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Cause my bush nailed it and it was like 2 and then it just kind of fell out of bounds, which obviously, so the weird part about my answer, kind of yes and no, because looking back, obviously you want to play it into the hill and I kind of hit the top side of the hill. But the second it left my hand, I thought it was perfect, and I thought I did everything how I wanted it to do. Whereas, if I would have thrown it any softer, I would have probably thought I would have thrown it OB left or like way short. So I thought I had it locked up after that shot.
So you said that you hadn't practiced it, and we knew just from the commentary that you hadn't in round 2 gone for that. You just played 18 for par. Is this going to change your approach to how you prepare and practice courses? Are you going to maybe consider if it's close and you need to go for something, you're going to change that? Or do you feel like you really went into this with the right game plan and you're just going to continue to do what you do?
I think the game plan was perfect, honestly. I was getting a little bit of crap actually from a couple of the announcers, like he's playing way too safe, just kind of throughout the whole tournament. And I ended up having, I'm not sure if everyone saw, but 60 holes in a row with no bogeys. And I had 2 bogeys in the first round. That's it. Really take into consideration all parts of the landing zones. So if I want to land left or right in the fairway, not just like chuck it through the gap and hope it gets through, actually know where you want it to land once it gets past the certain, first part of the flight. And then that way I can have different options coming into the green. So I'm going to, be a little more analytical about that stuff.
It's amazing to hear you talk about all this because it feels like you're a tour veteran, even though you're 16 years old and you haven't really even been on a full tour yet. And when I actually contacted you about this interview last week, I texted you during the middle of the school day, which like hadn't even crossed my mind. So I just think it's very impressive. Can you tell us a little bit about your disc golf background? You've obviously been playing a long time, and you've been a talented, obvious, up and coming player for some time, but to get to the point where you're already in a position to win an Elite Series event against one of the best fields that we've seen in a very long time at a regular season disc golf pro tour tournament, it's all very impressive. So when did you get started playing, and how have you managed to get to the point where at 16 you're already starting to think about like technical shot shaping and where you want to land in the landing zone? I don't think most kids your age are thinking about that.
I mean, like one of it just comes from my want to win. And I really have always kind of studied what makes players as good as they are. And some of that's practice, a lot of it is, but most of it is actually the way that they play the courses, their disc selection and decision making, and also form. I've realized, everyone has slightly different form, but they all hit the major key points in the form for forehand, backhand, or anything, putting included. And I think that, along with, being in Iowa, we have tons of wind here, that has kind of helped me, be well-rounded on the tour. And I have a decent, strong sidearm and backhand game. So I'm a pretty versatile player. I feel like, and sidearm was definitely something that I lacked a couple years ago, and I worked on it, really hard. I had a left knee surgery before last season, and I couldn't throw any sidearms. So that was something I had to kind of regain and get back and trust again. But I think I just I really enjoy studying why people are so good, like, Pong, Beth, Ricky, obviously the top players. And I've kind of broke down those reasons and, implemented them into my own game.
So how did you get into disc golf that led you to this point? Was it family, friends? And then when did you decide this is something that I really think I can do seriously and competitively?
Yeah, so we were living in northern Iowa at the time, and I was like 8 or 9 or something like that. And then we had just moved to the big city, not that big, but Des Moines, Iowa. We were living in a town of 700 at the time, so super tiny town. And we moved down here to Des Moines, and we had moved into our new house, and our neighbor had a disc golf basket. And he also had a 3 or 4 year old kid. And my mom had bought me a junior set of golf clubs that I never used. So we traded the golf clubs for the basket, and he kind of just gave me a couple discs. Didn't teach me ever, but just kind of gave me a couple discs. It was a pretty garbage basket too. And I kind of just got hooked from there. I was watching Brody Smith's trick shot videos on YouTube with the ultimate Frisbees. And we had, in this new house, we had a basketball hoop in the backyard at a park with a huge wide open space. So I was trying to replicate his trick shots. I mean, my mom has videos of me doing the hammer throws into the hoops and stuff with ultimate Frisbees, because that's what I enjoyed the most. But then I went to the store and I bought a disc golf disc by accident, and ended up being a champion Firebird. And then I kind of messed with that a little bit, went back to the ultimate Frisbee, and then I went back to disc golf because disc golf was more fun. And then kind of just stuck with it from there and started watching YouTube videos. And then when I kind of realized I was able to compete was just winning my first rec event, honestly, by a couple strokes. And, it came down to the wire, and I was like, wow, this is fun. I want to improve. And I know, and I knew at the time, the taller I grow and the stronger I get, the better I'm going to get just naturally. And if I can practice and work hard the whole way, that who knows what I can be. Maybe I could be one of the best players in the world, which, I'm hoping to still get to that point. So, yeah.
It does.
Charlie, sorry, just real quick, a Star Firebird and an Ultra Star, those are the same thing, right? Just from your ultimate background?
All I need to do is buy my kid a Firebird, and then they're going to turn into the next big thing. So, Gannon, first of all, have you had a chance to tell Brody that story and been on a card with him out on tour?
I haven't told him face to face, but I think I did an Instagram video one time, a story, and I think he saw it and replied to it. So I think he knows, I think.
Cool. That's awesome. So would you say you're more proud of, being in the mix and getting a second place finish, or are you more frustrated that you couldn't close it out in the playoff?
Yeah, the second place means nothing to me. I lost. That's all that matters. I don't care about the money doesn't matter to me at all, or, all I want to do is win. And the second place, that just means I lost. It doesn't mean I got second. For me, it's it really motivates me. Obviously, like I said, last year I got 4th at the Preserve. I ended up losing by, I think, 4. But so that was a little bit of, I kind of told myself I can maybe, win one of these big events. But just coming into this year and then kind of being in the lead the whole time and not feeling like I did anything special, that was what kind of proved to me that, I can actually win an event. And I think that's huge for my career, knowing that, now I know I kind of belong here, and I can just continue to play good and hopefully take one down and win soon.
So your mom was out there caddying for you at LVC, and I see on your schedule that you're basically going to most of the upcoming Elite Series events, some of which are not very close to Iowa. how are you managing being in school and traveling to play in these tournaments? Are you flying places? Are you doing brutally long drives? I mean, you have an interesting situation because obviously most players are in their 20s or 30s and they're either driving or they're flying or whatever. But you still have to go to school every day. So how are you managing that?
Yeah. So for school, they said as long as I can stay caught up on the work, it doesn't matter how many days I miss. But they also, so I
Good
go
for
in
them.
person. What?
I just said good for them. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But they actually didn't let me try online. So that was kind of a not so good part of them. They weren't allowing me to do any online school, which I thought was kind of crappy just because, I don't think my school really knows the magnitude of disc golf and where I'm at in the sport. I think they just think it's a hobby and I'm just like missing school. My teachers think that too a lot. And, but yeah, it was school. And then, so that's how it happens. The grades suffer a little bit, not a ton. I'm still able to get A's and B's, but nothing. I'm not like a perfect student, obviously, but I do pretty good in school, even with missing a lot of time. And how I get to the events, either my mom, like for Vegas and All-Star event, I flew down there, and then for I think I'm only gonna fly to Portland for Beaver State Fling and Portland Open, and then I'll fly to Vermont, I think, for Green Mountain Championships and MVP Open at Maple Hill, and I might fly to Charlotte for USDGC and Pro Tour Finals. But everywhere else, I'm gonna drive. Like Emporia is only 4 hours from here. The Preserve's 4 hours. Ledgestone's 4 hours. So, and then we have the Des Moines Challenge right in my backyard. So that's 5 just major events within 4 hours. So we actually live in a pretty central spot. So, but we're going to drive a lot of the places. I think for Texas, we're going to leave tomorrow and just drive the whole way.
And is your mom planning on coming along and caddying for you at all those events?
I'd say about half of them, maybe 3/4 of them. She tries to go as many events as possible, but like with the Texas swing down there, I think she might just come for Waco, and then she'll drive back herself, and then I'll go to Belton and Texas States with friends, and then I think fly back actually. So so a little weird with that, but yeah, mom's gonna try to go to most of the events.
And when your mom caddies for you, is it she just carrying the bag, or does she also know your game to say, do you ask her questions or talk about the game or the situation at all?
Yeah, she pretty much just carries my bag. She understands like the term hyzer or anhyzer or overstable, understable, or flippy or whatever. She understands that, but she doesn't know any of the discs in my bag or how they fly. And she doesn't know like what a putter is or a driver. She can't tell the difference. She might say like, "Oh, there's a little bit of left to right wind," or it drops off behind the basket, or there's water. She'll say something like that, but nothing like here, take this disc, throw it, and that's the right disc.
So maybe this is a silly question. I think I know the answer, but what's your future plans? I mean, a lot of kids, they graduate, they go to college. Are you planning to try to go to college, or are you straight out into full-time professional disc golf?
Gonna go straight to professional disc golf full time. I was originally gonna go to college even as of last year, but then Prodigy being incredible, I got a really great contract with them, and they're able to keep me on the road and make it a pretty high paying job actually, and even just for anybody, and being 16, and I'm not a person who spends really any money. I don't like to spend money, so it makes it pretty easy to stay on the road and not have to worry about like a financial situation with their help. But yeah, my parents were super pushy with college and especially like my dad too. He was like, "You have to go to college. Disc golf is like a side gig." And then, we kind of were working out the contracts and, what I'm potentially going to make just off winnings this year. And, it ended up where he's like, "Oh yeah, no, forget college, dude. Just go play disc golf."
Wow.
What would you say are your goals going into this season, and have they been changed at all by your performance at LVC?
A little bit. Originally I was hoping for, and I still am, just one Elite Series win. And I was also kind of hoping for top 10 at every event, which is, I know it's not going to happen because I'm going to have one off weekend or two off weekends. But I think just getting like in that top 8 for the Pro Tour finals or top 4. And like I said, yeah, I still just want to win one Pro Tour event. And with Las Vegas showing me I can easily do that, I had a 3-stroke lead after 3 rounds. Like normal DGPT events are only 3 rounds, and I was able to have a 3-stroke lead after those 3 rounds. So I think it changed my expectations a little bit, and I think I'm going to have a little bit higher goals. I always like to set my goals super low. That way I can kind of, I guess, blow them out of the water. Coming into a lot of the events last year, I was hoping for like top 30, even like the preserve and stuff, and I was able to get top 5. So stuff like that. But yeah, definitely changed my perspective on my goals.
Even seeing the difference from last year to this year, it just feels like physically you are in a better position to play elite disc golf. It seems like you've gotten taller. I don't know if that's just the camera playing tricks on me. But have you noticed that, like, that you're able to, throw further or just be more resilient on the course? I know you went through the knee surgery. Just like growing up, basically, because you're still, I don't know how tall you are, but you seem like you're getting into the right, like tall, lanky mode of disc golf, which I feel like is the optimal one.
100%. Yeah. I think last year, like at Waco, when I was able to make the lead card, I was like 6'1.5" or 6'2", and now I'm 6'5". So that helped a ton. And a lot of people can't really tell, but I've definitely seen, like, just in my upper body, a little bit of more growth, I guess, or even in my legs a little bit. I started working out and eating a little healthier. When I say a little healthier, I never ate good in the first place, but I'm cutting out, like, today I went to like Chick-fil-A and I didn't have a pop, and I usually get like a large pop, and I didn't get that, So now I think that all kind of helped, put me physically in a better position. That way, I can stay focused on the course. And in terms of distance, it's kind of weird, actually. I feel like, for a little bit there, like in the mid-season last year, I was having trouble with like just consistency and accuracy. I think I was just with the growing, and I had that same issue like 2 off seasons ago because I was playing mostly basketball, and then went back to disc golf after like a month, and my footwork felt so slow because I was getting taller and lankier. But yeah.
Do you feel like there are a particular set of courses or style of courses that set up well for your game? Preserve, LVC, obviously longer and a little more open. Do you feel like those courses are where you excel, or are there different, or any set that you feel are best for you?
It's funny you say that because I feel like the preserve in Las Vegas is courses I do terrible at. I think I play the best at like a wooded open mix. I think with the woods, I'm able to get strokes on a lot of the pros. I feel like sometimes some of them, I feel like I can hit gaps a little bit better than some of them, so that helps me get a couple strokes. But I'm also able to throw 600 feet if I really need to, which is plenty on those kind of courses. I never really do that. I usually go for about 500. But if I need to bust out a big drive, I can do that. But I prefer playing courses like Pickard Park here in Des Moines. Perfect open wooded mix, long. I'm a fan of Idlewild. Hornets Nest I loved a lot. I thought it was a fair wooded course. But I don't like courses that are super wooded like Northwoods. I think that's just overwhelming. There's no opportunity to like throw a bomb, so it can get a little stressful.
So, as you look ahead to your career, I mean, people are starting to talk about, like, you have the ability to be a tremendously successful player in the sport, given where you are right now at just age 16. What do you think about that? Like, do you see yourself as being like, oh, I could be the next Paul Macbeth? People have set that comparison up the last couple of weeks.
I think maybe the only issue would be just other people. Disc golf is just so big now where, I'm seeing consistently a bunch of like 8-year-olds starting to play, and they're good, it's going to become that game where it's just like basketball right now, where you're growing up and you're born playing basketball. Now people are going to be born playing disc golf, and they're going to be just naturally talented at that game, I feel like. But I feel like in terms of where my career could go, I think it could get on that Paul McBeth level, especially because I have, 20 years at least of competitive disc golf left, which is kind of insane to think. That's a long time. So, even the top pros in our game are 31-ish years old. So, disc golf is a game we can play for a long time at a high level, even getting towards the, upper 30s.
Which pros do you look up to or model your game after? Because you grew up, you were a little kid like 10 years ago. So who did you say, wow, they're awesome, I want to be like them?
The first one I can ever remember and still is Will Schustrick. Not even sure exactly why, but I loved his form and just the way he kind of threw the disc, and that's kind of how I model my form after. Obviously, I do my own thing a little bit with the footwork and the little intricacies, but so it's a little bit different. In terms of putting, I kind of do my own thing as well. And sidearm, I'd probably say Eagle McMahon is my kind of sidearm. That's kind of who I model it after. But yeah, so I think in terms of how I approach the game, it's probably more of a Nate Sexton, where I'm playing safe and playing percentages.
So you said that you do your own thing for putting. How did you develop your putting routine? What is your putting practice routine? Because it's obviously one of the strongest parts of your game, with exceptional percentages both last year and at LVC. So what is it that you developed into to become such a good putter?
I actually think there's a lot of things that I've kind of discovered help a person become a good putter. And I try to do those things where other people think it's bad to do, and they don't even try it. I've heard a lot of people say you want to bring it down to the middle of your body and then come through to the middle of your body, which I actually disagree with. I think you should come down to your left side of your body. That way your elbow is always lined up with the basket. So when you pull up and release the disc, your upper part of your arm doesn't go left or right. It's just going up and down, where if you hold it in the middle, it has to go here, and then you have to push it in basically to extend the disc. So I think coming down to my left side of my body and coming down to about my thigh, knee area on my left leg, it keeps everything in a straight line, even though it's kind of coming from left to right a little bit. I think that's kind of what has developed me to be such a good putter. And then obviously I do hundreds of reps a day from 30 feet only, like I said.
That'll get the job done. Are you good at darts or pool or other skill sports?
I'm okay at pool. I'm not super good, but I'm also not trash. So, it's kind of weird. I'm pretty good at pretty solid. I'd say every sport decent. Basketball is always known for being a really good 3-point shooter. So that was kind of my strength in basketball. So kind of precision. I was a pitcher in baseball, and up until when I stopped playing, I was, I guess, kind of the best for my age. And then obviously the kids started to catch up to me, but I was able to kind of throw the fastest and the most accurate at my age when I was playing 11 or 12, when I was 11 or 12. But so yeah, those, darts, I'm not honestly sure. I don't play darts, but I'd like to. I don't have a dartboard, but I'm trying to think any other sports. Pretty much anything that involves throwing or hitting, I'm pretty good at.
All right. Well, we got Waco coming up this weekend. What are your thoughts on the Brazos East course, and what's your game plan?
Yeah, the Beast is one of my favorite courses. I feel like if you look at it, just even from the holes itself, you have 9 open and 9 wooded holes, which is a perfect mix for a course. The rough is rough, but it's not too rough. You're still able to scramble, and I think the gaps are the perfect size. They're fair. It's one of my favorite courses on tour. So I think the course plays my game really well. I did pretty solid there last year. But another thing that I think is going to play with my game is the weather is looking absolutely terrible. On the first day specifically, it's supposed to be, I think, the the high's like 48 and with rain and 35-mile-an-hour winds. So, and then you put that in Texas and it gets even worse, So day one is going to be just incredibly awful conditions, and I'm going to kind of use my safe game plan to my advantage, get the birdies in the woods, and just survive in the open and take the pars.
Wow, that really does sound awful. I had not looked at the forecast yet, so interesting. Gannon, well, thank you so much for coming on. Fascinating to hear about, just your development as a player and your mindset. I think that's the most interesting thing to me. And I guess one last question. Where do you draw that very competitive mindset from? Is that something you've always had? Is that something that you got from your parents, from watching pro sports? What's that come from?
I think just who I naturally am, I hate losing and I want to win everything. Like I was playing Monopoly the other night and I did not want to lose. Fun fact, I've only lost one game of Monopoly ever.
Wow.
So board games I'm like super competitive at. Pickup basketball, any type of contest, card games, anything I'm trying to win. And people are like, dude, you take it way too serious. I'm like, I'm trying to win, dude. So I apply that to disc golf as well. And one of the things in disc golf is just seeing yourself progress. It pushes me to want to practice even more and become better. So, yeah.
All right. Well, best of luck out there on the pro tour, and we'll be looking forward to seeing what you can do this season.
Thank you so much.
Gannon Buhr with us here on the Upshot. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Upshot. Thanks again to Gannon for stopping in. What a confident and cerebral young player Gannon Buhr is. I mean, as I said in the interview, he sounds like a tour veteran, and he didn't even do a full tour last year. We're talking about somebody who's just starting out his career.
He has the mindset you need to succeed on tour. I mean, when you hear a 16-year-old who just made thousands of dollars from a playoff at an Elite Series event say, second place means nothing to me, man, I lost. Like, that was crazy. That was really, I mean, he's going to go, I think that mentality is going to take him a long ways, let alone his skill set.
6'5". When you look at baseball and you look at elite pitchers, they're not all 6 foot plus, but most of them are. Having the levers, having the ability to just create more torque with longer arms and that kind of size is a thing. Randy Johnson was what, 6'6", 6'7"? I mean, there's a reason that like you see pitchers generally, you don't see 5'10" pitchers out there much. There's exceptions, but a lot of times you're going to see tall, long-armed, large ape index type people out there throwing 95-mile-per-hour fastballs. And so think about the fact that Gannon Buhr, like, he's still growing and is still like just getting ready to go. Like, he's like, I'm eating better. I'm not drinking soda at Chick-fil-A anymore. I am just getting the chicken and the fries, which, you know what? Eat whatever you want when you're 16 years old. But like, think about what's possible for him if he gets onto a serious weight training program and he continues to work on developing his distance. I mean, the sky is the limit for Gannon Buhr. And I just think it's amazing to watch the progress he's made in just a couple of years.
I also found and maybe it's just the benefit of young confidence, but for him to say, yeah, I throw out what is considered the starting point for traditional putting wisdom, right? Most clinics start with bring that disc in a straight line down and straight at the basket. Like that is lesson number 1 of putting. And he's like, nah, dog, that ain't it. I last night, I'm not even joking. After we recorded the interview, I sat down and like grabbed a putter and tried to make my arm swing like that. And it's very weird, but I guess I could see how it works.
Yeah, it's pretty special to see that he's found his own way. And like, I get the concept of the elbow thing, but it's not my approach, but I do feel like I'm going to go try it out. I mean, how can you not at least try it out when you hear somebody who's like the best putter on tour doing it? So there's multiple ways to skin a cat. So anyway, thanks again to Gannon Buhr for stopping by. And thank you so much for tuning in to this week's edition of The Upshot. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you on Thursday. Don't miss our interview show tomorrow with Steve Dodge.